And then we drove from Welch, West Virginia that night to Charlotte, North Carolina, so we could get a flight somewhere in civilization. So we got in. We should have stopped and visited Stephen New. We got in at like 3 a.m. to Charlotte, checked in at the airport, and the next day flew to New York, to Albany, and made our Raw debut in Alexandria Bay, New York. And I know everybody's thinking, oh, what was it like to debut on this big television show after being in all these rinky-dink places? This was the worst place they ever did Raw. Brian, I've got the book here, Graham Cawthon's History of Professional Wrestling, Volume 2, The Results, WWF 1990 through 1999. July 25th in 1993, it drew 1,000 people at the Castle Recreation Center in Alexandria Bay, New York, and they taped what had to be 5 hours of TV in this cattle barn. And I mean, we were actually having our meetings outside in the gravel parking lot. So it was not what the WWF Raw tapings would become. And that's not only when the Bodies debuted and we had a match. As a matter of fact, the debut was against Bobby Who and Mike Bucci. Nova himself dealt Ken Bucci with the moonsault. But anyway, at that point also I started managing Yokozuna. And that's the night that I came out and Bobby Heenan hugged me, and we had that night. So that was cool. But once again, we'd done a show in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia, driven to Charlotte, flown to New York State, debuted on Raw on Sunday. Well, the taping, the TV taping, it was Superstars taping. I tell a lie. It was Superstars taping. But we did Raw. Somehow, they used to tape everything back in those days. The following day, we went to Utica and did another 5 hours of TV plus interviews all day. And the following day, Plattsburgh, New York, and did the same thing. And before we could finally fly back to Charlotte, get in our car, and fucking get back home. So that was a hectic end of July. But I thought, okay, at least we've got all these things going. Let's see what's going to fucking happen.
You said something interesting before. You said, I didn't know why they let me mention Smoky Mountain Wrestling then. Almost alluding to now you know exactly why. So first question is, why did they? And the second is, what's it like being made the manager of a guy who already has a manager?
Well, that's why they termed it American spokesperson, because they didn't want to offend Fuji. But I mean, in all honesty, Fuji was a wrestling legend, but the promos were not there. Then and Vince really wanted Yoko to be over to pass the torch, as he thought at that time, to Luger. But there needed to be some conflict there. Anyway, I figured it out shortly afterwards, because after contemplation, why it was so strange that we sent that video up. I knew that's why somehow I had gotten on the radar for a rib video. But when I found out the day of it, I think that somebody probably said to the people that would make this decision, Cornette won't come without his team, and he won't leave Smoky Mountain Wrestling, so we've got to acknowledge it in some form or fashion. Because there was a couple of people up there at the time that knew me well enough to make that statement and know that it was correct. And I think they almost sprung the Yokozuna thing on me so as not to scare me off, like they were trying to pull me farther in. And because somebody also probably said, if he just comes up and you ask him about it that day, he probably won't say no. And this was not supposed to be it wasn't supposed to be a long-term thing, or not supposed to be a long-term thing. It was never discussed. It was, hey, we're short on talent. We need a team for the Steiners for SummerSlam, and we'll see if you want to come make some shots.
But still, they never mentioned anyone. They never ever. I mean, even USWA, Jerry Jarrett's already involved. Jerry Lawler's already working there. They never got a mention on any of the WWF shows. But Smoky Mountain did. I mean, it really was amazing at the time.
I don't think that either one of them ever said, if you don't mention Memphis, I'm not coming.
If they wouldn't have mentioned Smoky Mountain Wrestling, you wouldn't have done it.
No, because see, that was one hesitation that I had, is that I said I don't want people to tune on TV and think that we've left. I got these cards advertised. I got this fucking, I don't want them to think that I've bailed on the boys did. The people that I thought knew me good enough to know that I was just keeping a secret angle and was going to be around, the boys, oh, he's bailed on us. But I didn't want anybody to think that, no, the bodies had left and wouldn't be fulfilling the dates in August. My big show's coming up, etc. No, I said I can't do it unless we make it plain that we are from Smoky Mountain Wrestling and we are involved in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and it's an ongoing thing. So
it's amazing. Within a few months, you get Smoky Mountain Wrestling mentioned on WCW TV and WWF TV, with you and your top heel tag team. I have to ask you, too, what was it like from your perspective for Tom Pritchard, who had been a great wrestler for so many years but hadn't done anything on the national stage, and within a few months, he's on both major wrestling programs?
I think he was liking it. No, Tom probably handled all that stuff better than anybody else. And I don't know, who knows, if Stan had thought we might be going, maybe he would have stuck around a little longer. But the big one was, and honestly, to some detriment, was Jimmy Del Rey, because he literally was working independence in Florida under another name the first week of May, and he was in the tag team title match at SummerSlam at the end of August.
Yeah. So
that was pretty quick, and Jimmy tried too hard, I think, to fit in as a result of that. Did some things he probably should have thought about longer. But at any rate, so that's where we were. And the last thing I needed is more demands on my time. But at the same time, I thought and plus then we had access to talent, because already I had said, when it come up with it, we were booked for TV. I said, hey, I got these big shows in August, right? And I sure would love, because Boss Man Bubba was there at the time. And it wasn't like just it wasn't bringing a WWF star in, just as Hurd would say, dropping him in out of an airplane for no reason, just because he's a star. We had history. But at the same time, Bob Armstrong wanted to go out and get the best special referee that he possibly could to control, the whole situation. But at the same time, so Big Boss Man would stand up for justice and law and order. But I made sure everybody knew that he used to be Big Bubba Rogers and he used to be mine. And that played a part in it. So it fit, right?